explanation of like the technique as I do it. I'm going to kind of show it where it's available, important parts, important points I'm going to highlight, but I'm just going to kind of keep the technical, teaching flowing. So the way that hand fighting is, it's very much like, it's hard to like teach it sometimes as a system because it's not a move, it's a movement. He's going to do something, there's no way you're going to be able to transition from your inside tie to your collar to a wrist to outside without him possibly not being where he's supposed to be at one moment, right? Because he's moving, he's doing the same thing, he has what he wants to do, different styles. So this is just an idea, kind of a blueprint from years of hand fighting and manipulating, arms, head, of a system that for me works well, and they usually react, the 85–90% of guys react the way that, that I'm going to show. And, but what you want to kind of talk to your guys about is the understanding that same thing with if you're trying to get a guy to fake. So if you have a kid that you think, has a really good outside shot and you think like you could benefit from adding fakes into your style, the idea is what you want to communicate to them and have them buy into is you can't expect any feedback. The second you get to a place where you don't expect any feedback from your faking or from your hand fighting, that's when it becomes effective. And so what I mean by that is a lot of people want to fake and the guy falls or over or looks scared or chops every time, and that's just not going to happen, especially in the first period against a good guy. But if you've ever, so for me, I remember I sold out the fakes. I was at a tournament overseas, and this guy and he was kind of dumpy looking, but he had a really good fake, and a really good like hand fake to transition to fake. And I remember I felt so uncomfortable, and I was so exhausted by the end of the match that I just remember being like, that was miserable. And so that's when I kind of committed to like, okay, I'm just going to fake. Whether I see it or not, I remember what it felt like, and I'm just going to fake. And so it became something that I just fake every 5 to 7 seconds the whole match. And if it helps, if I see it, I see it. If I don't, I don't. But I just do it. It's like my stance, right? So you move in your stance. You move this way. You move this way. You don't go, man, my stance isn't doing anything. I'm going to just walk like normal. Right? No, there's a way you move in your stance that's just your movement. So that's how you incorporate your fakes. And that's how I communicate hand fighting is commit to a position, learn the technique, have a flow to your hands, and don't expect anything in return. Just understand there is a benefit. Whether or not you see the feedback is not important, because then it takes away that element of creating like, what's this even doing for me, right? Because all of us know a good hand fighting routine does a lot. It's just sometimes it's hard to see, especially if the guy's fighting back, especially if he's a good hand fighter himself. Sometimes, because not every kid needs to be an awesome hand fighter, break the guy, but every kid needs to be able to be a good enough hand fighter to not get broken, right? So that's everyone needs to be a 7 out of 10. So a 7 out of 10 is don't look like you're stalling. That's a baseline minimum for any person that wants to be elite. Jordan Burroughs isn't gonna push the guy's head down and walk behind him ever, but it doesn't look like he's stalling because he'll get in there and get rough when he needs to, right? So it's not about, all right, we're going over hand fighting today, it's time to break people, all right? That's not even in the conversation. And don't make that an expectation. Don't paint the picture, because hand fighting is addictive when someone does break, and it can take away from the point of the match, and that's score points. If you get addicted to just pulling that head, right? So make it about the scoring, make it about the movement, make it about the deception, and then, because wrestling gets people tired. Hand fighting gets your neck tired. Wrestling gets a person tired. So that being said, first little routine I like to do, just kind of, most of my stuff starts in the collar tie, ear to ear, just because everyone gets there. I stopped telling people to not get there. That wasn't working. Don't get there. Well, everyone gets there. So I started thinking, okay, look, let's get there and let's see what we can do, like to manipulate the position from there. So, couple things on hand fight controls and do's and don'ts and kind of rules. Arm manipulation. If it's a straight arm, you can post it, you can chop it, but you can't control a straight arm. It's very difficult to pull a straight arm and to control a straight arm. It just doesn't move. So defeating straight arms is explosive movements. I can post, move out of the way, I can chop it off me. I can't pull it over the top of me, I'll slip off. And I can't push it, I can't control it. So explosive movements, get rid of straight arms, and then the exact opposite is true for bent arms. I can't chop a bent arm, I'll just hack at it. And I can't post it either. It's very difficult because if it's bent, he's probably pressured down through his elbow. So it's really hard to post a bent arm. But what I can do is I can control a bent arm, and I can pull a bent arm. So, and those two things, manipulating arms, also goes with understanding the defense to that. So a good way to understand the defense of something is know how to use it offensively. So offensively, that's how I use arm manipulations. Defensively, if you got a guy that likes to pass your elbow, and he just keeps making you touch the ground, and you keep pulling his head, when I'm going to straighten my arm, it goes away, right? So this kind of stuff. Very easy to go away. Or if you're getting your hand chopped off because you're thumb blocking, and you're whacking it, and you just keep touching the mat, I'm going to bend my arm. No more chop. Right? So in the moment, transitions to, you notice he likes something, take it away with the position of your arm. Right? So you got a guy that has a really good post, you're probably going to want a collar tie. You got a guy that has a really good elbow pull, you're probably going to want a thumb block. Things like that. So, a little system that I like to use, I'm going to collar tie, backhand, everything's the same, right? So, normal stance, we're going to go ear to ear, right? So here we go. So all I'm going to do to manipulate my first movement, to manipulate ear to ear, I'm going to show you two, depending on what kind of wrestler he is. So if he has ear to ear and he's squeezing, then I'm going to use hand on wrist, and I'm going to control his arm over the top of my head. Boom. So this is not a level change. It's not a duck under. You should be able to do this 100 times, no energy. It's literally chin touches chest. I'm up by my wrist. I'm up by his wrist. And I pull it off the top of my head. I slide it kind of over the top to this side. And I track it down. Let go, and I end on his tricep. So I turn ear to ear to inside tie and collar. So this is probably one of the most frequently used moves in my arsenal because guys grab my head, I get out of there. Anytime someone's pulling my head, it's very hard to hold. On the flip side, if he's here and he's trying to keep away, that's when I'm going to fully straighten his arm with the thumb block, and I'm going to come down and chop. So if he's kind of keeping his distance, and I want him in, he won't let me, I'm going to fully straighten, chop, land on tricep. So anytime I clear an arm, and I want to maintain the tie, this is, so Coach Jackson talked about every day they do steering wheel drill. This is the most, for controlling entire body, that's the most beneficial inside tie and a collar, or two inside ties. So I always end there. So if I'm trying to manipulate an arm, if it's 50-50, anytime I try to do something, I always end on this. And whether he fights back in, then we go again. That time he's pulling. So now the next transition, once I do this, I'm going to squeeze. I'm gonna kind of pull him down, and real quick, when I collar tie, if it's 50-50, I'm kind of, my hand isn't too heavy. On his neck, what it is it's forearm pushing, my forearm's pushing him away, and I'm actually gonna curl up over his head. So my collar tie isn't this, it's actually this. So I'm trying to push this away and this down. So I'm not just trying to pull his, I'm not trying to weigh down on his body. I'm trying to push his body away and curl over the top of his head. And so the easiest time to do that is once I turn it into my advantage. So 50-50, I'll let it sit here, and I'm really focused on kind of keeping his body at bay. I might give a little bit of pull, but once I take his arm off, now I have free reign of his body. Now I'm actually going to retract my elbow, and I'm going to control just the top of his head once I have that arm. So this is how I do, and this is how I fall off most of my positions, because right here, I have nothing open. Right here, I have a lot open. And I can see, my vision opens up here. So it's, don't latch onto his body. Again, get used to getting loose and be able to, on his head. Because now, every time, a good way to start to learn to release the head is slide off the top. Because then you get a little slingshot effect. So if I do this, I have to come over and come down. But if I do this, I get a little slingshot effect and my arm's already on the way down. So this little slingshot effect, every time I take my hand off a head, and sometimes it's as exaggerated as 1, 2, 1, 2, like this. I'm like patty caking his head to go. So, next position. I'm going to clear tricep. I'm going to steering wheel that direction. When he starts to come back in, when I feel that, I'm going to actually switch, and I'm going to beat this hand in. So he's going to come in, wham. I'm going to come back, and here's, literally, we've all seen this, steering wheel drill. But from here, my butt's going away. I start to feel like he's about to change the position. I change it. So again, I keep my elbow here, over the top, I change the position. Okay? So now, my next position, and I teach it in piece by piece, right? So you get a kid to get really used to this, then this. So the next one, and you can do either one, come back over. So now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is the one that is a little awkward because when I have a nice bite on his head, I don't want to let it go, right? So this is sometimes our lifeline. So this is the one that you might have to talk a little more about. But right here, I'm going to go butt away. And when I start to, all I'm going to do when I get ready to change the position is I'm going to cut down his arm. And as I slide, I'm going to let go of his head and I'm going to grab his cross wrist. So this is just going to straighten his arm. I'm going to grab his cross wrist and my butt position is going to change from circle toward it. So 1, 2, boom. Circle toward it. So now, this is exaggerated, but this is the direction I'm moving in. So what direction is he going to move? Exactly, right? So when I feel this, when I make this transition change, my butt circles the opposite way of steering wheel. Once this happens, I make that movement toward that side. He makes a pronounced movement. My outside hand now goes to his head. And that's my lead collar tie hand. So I'm back around. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to smack his head up. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to pull him into place. I'm going to make him come and get me. Because right here, this is uncomfortable for him. So when I do this, I'm going to make him come and get me. And then he's going to come back. And he's going to either collar tie. Very, very, very common. Or he might get my wrist. And if he gets my wrist, I'm going to still give this to him. That's why I make him want to grab my body, whether it's a tie up